has any one of you run into the scenario, I'd list my house, but I don't want to list it at this price. I want to list it at this price, and it's not. Let's say the house is really worth $400,000, and they're wanting $450,000. Has anyone run into a client like that?
Sometimes.
Okay, a lot. And they want to wait till their house becomes worth the 450 before they'll put it on the market, right? Say
Right.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the other part of the scenario is, for this to work in this conversation, we also have a buyer that says, I will sell my house if I can get 450, and I will buy a piece of property that's a little more expensive, and therefore then I can afford a little more house. Have you had clients say that to you? I'll sell my house for 450, it's only worth 400, but that way I can afford a little bit more house. So here's the scenario that I want you to walk through, because you've got to be able to get this concept, to be able to put another transaction together. And I think you guys have probably got sellers and perhaps some buyers that you're talking to right now. So let's use this scenario. Write down the house is worth $400,000. Just write it down, $400,000. And the seller wants $440 to $450 for it. Sounds like a standard seller, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the seller wants to move up in a similar but nicer neighborhood, and the prices for the homes he's looking at is decent price, decent home, about $700,000. So write down $700,000. He's selling a $400-ish thousand house, and he's moving into a $700,000 house. All right? Now the seller says to you, I think prices are going up. Prices are going up. Now, okay, so you would ask the seller, what does he think the price is going to be 6 months or a year from now? If today it's worth a solid 400, and he wants 440, 450 for the property, he thinks the property's then therefore going up what? What percentage? About 10 to 12%, right? So for the sake of this conversation, let's just talk. He thinks it's going to go up 10%. All right? Whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, it doesn't matter. He thinks the prices in the near future are going to be going up 10%. All right? So here's the scenario. His house, a year from now, is worth the $450,000 or $440,000, 10% more, that he wants for the property. And the $700,000 house that he wanted to buy is now worth what?
$770,000.
Maybe $770,000, right?
Yes.
The only way that a house isn't going to go up is if we're in a vacuum. And we're not in a vacuum right now. That's the point that we've got to try and communicate to our buyers and our sellers. They're thinking their house is the only house that's going to go up in value. Right?
Yep.
We have to be able to communicate to them that that house in the next community is going to go up similarly. Now maybe it won't go up a full 10%. Maybe it goes up only an 8%. But let's talk about 10% right here, okay? So now, what do I have? I have his house worth $440, and I have the house he wants to buy now worth $770. So I have a $40,000 and $70,000 difference. I subtract 40 from 70, what do I have? $30,000 that the seller is now paying more for the house he's buying. Do you get this?
Yes.
Now, if you ask the seller if prices are going up, and he says yes, and he doesn't, the question is, do I really have a real seller? You may not. Because if he doesn't believe the house he wants to buy is going to go up similarly to his, he's not really in reality, okay? Because that's what's going to go on. But that's not the end of the story. It's not just that $30,000 increase. You also have a situation where you have the taxes on the increase. The $70,000 more that he's paying on the new house that he's going to buy at 1.25% in percentage is what we're going to do it at. So 70,000 times 1.25 is right down $875. Right down $875. Not a lot of money. However, most sellers, most buyers that we have in our marketplace today that are staying in the properties that aren't upside down, that are continuing out there, those people are staying in their properties anywhere from 8 to 12 years. Statistically speaking, that's what people stay in their properties, 8 to 12 years. So let's use 10 years, $875 per year times 10 years, we have another $8,750. So write that down. So we have the $30,000 and $8,750. Everybody with me so far?
Yes.
All right, now, let's also assume that the buyer isn't going to pay cash for the property and that they're going to finance the additional $70,000. At 5% interest, at 5% interest today for the $70,000, that's 7 times 5 is how much? $3,500. So it's $3,500 a year extra. It's now costing the seller, who's turned buyer, to keep the property. Same 10 years, how much is that? It's $35,000. So the seller didn't want to sell because he wanted a little bit more for the property. He ended up with paying $30,000 more because the house he wanted to buy went up. He paid $8,700 more because the taxes went up. And he paid $35,000 more because the interest on the $70,000 was an extra charge. So he's paying somewhere between a low of $30,000 to a high of $73,000, $74,000. You need to be able to walk your clients through this scenario. Now, there's another piece to the puzzle. If interest rates went up 1% between this year and next year, and the seller's financing 80% of the $700,000 house, that's $560,000. You guys with me?
Of the 770.
Sorry, on the 770. So you're right. So it's close to $600,000 he's financing. All right? At an extra percent. 1% on $600,000 is $6,000 a year more. $6,000 a year more is now times 10 years. Another $60,000. So the buyer who thought by waiting he was getting a better deal and having more money to be able to buy the house, it could potentially be over $100,000 behind the 8 ball. You guys with me on this?
Yes.
Is this amazing?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
You have to get a hold of these numbers. This is reality. It's truth. And that's what's going on in the marketplace today. Questions on this?